Hi everyone. There's a very significant celestial event that's happening today, which I felt to speak about, and that is the descent of Ishtar or Inanna, which happens whenever Venus, the planet Venus, the sphere of love, descends. So she has begun her descent, which will go for 40 days. Now that is significant. You might remember Moses spent 40 days out in the desert. It's a significant number. You know, it was said that you couldn't study Kabbalah until you turned 40, that you weren't allowed access to the mysteries. So 40 is very significant. But the reason for this is Venus, hi Carrie, Venus is beginning her retrograde period. Now we've already entered the shadow of that. That starts 2 weeks before a retrograde period. But today, October the 5th, hi Tony, hi Laura, Venus has begun to literally, well, from Earth it would appear as if she's going backwards, but the ancients, they describe this as the myth of the descent of Ishtar or Inanna. And so this happens, you know, every year, but the dates of it change. So the sign that she descends in changes. And this year, she is descending in Scorpio. Dun, 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 dun. So for those that know anything about Scorpio, you know that this is the sign of death, of transmutation, of transformation. And so over the next 40 days, Weezer's changing, folks. Yeah, we are going to be put through a crucible of fire in the realm of relationships. So, you know, there's no graceful way to do it, except laugh. You know, it's one of the best ways to transmute the shadow is to have a good laugh about it, laugh at ourselves, laugh at our unconscious choices, our unconscious actions. Just laugh at it all. That helps restore us back to the light so we don't take, you know, things too seriously and remain dark and in the shadow. So, you know, what happens if we look out at the sky over the next 40 days? Venus, the star, the planet, she will go from being the evening star, okay, which is when we're more in the immature Venus, which is Aphrodite, the maiden, who governs the sacral, the emotional center. And she's kind of like, you know, the princess. Now, this is not just about women either, okay? Even men have an inner Aphrodite. We've all got feminine and masculine archetypes that govern the different energy centers within our psyche, within our light body. And there's more info about those if you're interested in my book, Creating Sacred Union Within. And if you'd like me to facilitate you through understanding those and empowering them, then join me here in Bali for the Rainbow Bridge Retreat, which is December 9 through to 17, which is, interestingly enough, when we emerge out of the shadow of this particular Venus descent. So how do you harness this descent, you know, to make it, you know, an opportunity for growth? The key here is self-love, okay? Because when Venus is the maiden, when she is the evening star in the sky, which she is for the first half of this descent process, it's kind of like young women and young men out at a nightclub looking for love in all the wrong places, yeah? You know, really being attracted to people that feel like home because they feel like the family of origin issues that we have grown up with. And so this can often be a repetition of karmic patterns of, you know, toxic dances. And so up until October 26, so from today, October 5 through to October 6, and even if you're on the other side of the date line in the Northern Hemisphere, this still applies to you as I'm speaking. You don't have to wait till it's, you know, October 5 on your calendar. So from October 5 to October 26, this is when we're really likely to see the young Aphrodite within us playing out. And that can be, especially when it's in Scorpio, being compulsive, love addiction, you know, being tempted to maybe have an affair and cheat on your partner. You know, this is about illicit love, or exploring taboos. You know, taboo comes from the Polynesian word tapua, meaning sacred power. So the taboos in life are the things that hold a lot of power. And so our culture doesn't deal well with power, which is a very scorpionic theme. So we tend to suppress that which is powerful and fear it, and then it distorts. So I'm putting together a series of masterclass presentations here in Ubud, one on blood, one on sex, and one on death, specifically for this transit. It turns out that wasn't intentional. But, you know, really unveiling the sacred power between those three things that initiate our psyche into the underworld. For instance, when we lose our virginity, or when we experience our first period, or when someone, even a pet, dies, those events put us in through a loss of innocence into the underworld, which is hell, yeah, which is inner darkness, depression. And if we don't have shamanic guidance, you know, mystical insight to help navigate that inner darkness within, we can stay lost in the underworld for years. And so those talks that I'm presenting will be, you know, how to navigate your way out of the dark. There's one actually starting at Sayuri, October 13, on navigating life's downward descent. So if you're in Ubud, Bali, or you're traveling here, I would love to share that with you. So getting back to this Venus descent, it is likely to bring up whatever is not being acknowledged in relationships. So whatever is being swept under the rug, this could be the cyclic issue that you keep coming back to, and every time, you know, you might get more heated about it because it becomes more charged, whatever the unresolved issue is. And so that could really blow up in your faces, because if we think about Venus and Scorpio, Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, which is, you think about plutonium, it's nuclear. So yeah, look, this is going to be a very testing time, not just for intimate relationships, but, you know, Venus is also about our social relationships, any form of relating, particularly how do we share power, okay? Because we don't get taught how to share power in our modern day culture. We don't have what all the ancient traditions had, which was circle as a practice from the time that you step into puberty. So we don't pass a talking stick and have equal right to speak. We don't learn how to share power. Instead, the group dynamics that we're initiated into is he or she who is the loudest or the biggest bully, the most dominating ego, is the one who gets the most airtime. So, and that plays out on the world stage, whether it's politics. I mean, we see politicians behaving extraordinarily badly in question time. And these are not, you know, what would you say, the true leaders. These are the biggest egos, like, you know, in the film The Dark Crystal, where we see the Skepsies fighting and clawing to have absolute power, and will do anything to each other in order to have that. And so that's what's happening, you know, in our world, in the halls of power. And so, you know, this descent period of Venus is likely to really show us how much that breaks our heart, you know, the impact that has on the beauty of the world, on our ability to be loving towards each other. So, you know, Venus in Scorpio is when we really have to look at our own dark side and take full responsibility for it. So not wield unconscious power by being the victim and blaming everybody else for all the pain we've endured in relationships, but really getting real with ourselves and looking at, okay, everything in my life is the sum of my choices. Even before I incarnated, my choices as a soul, I put my hand up to incarnate into that family or to have that abuse happen to me. All of it we have agreed to. It's part of our sacred contract so that our soul could learn. So the more that we deny our power, the more disempowered we are, and we can't then transmute the poison. So, you know, if we think about Scorpio, it's the energy of the serpent, and the totemic medicine of the serpent is transmutation. So taking those bitter pills, taking the most traumatic, painful experiences that we've had, in this case, in relationship, and coming to a point where we can honestly be grateful that we have had that experience, because it has been a trial by fire, but nothing could have given us the experiential wisdom unless we had gone through that experience. So it is so important that we don't just deny our power by blaming other people outside of ourselves, because that keeps us in the victim consciousness, disempowered. So, you know, it's a flag if we're calling ourselves survivors of life or of an experience. You know, that's a sign that we are identified as victim, and the ego is getting some kind of benefit from that. And I know this is, you know, taboo stuff to be saying, but we have to move on. We have to shift the energy. So I was looking up different versions of the myth of Inanna, the myth of Ishtar. So Inanna was how she was known originally, and then later on in Babylon she was known as Ishtar, but the name means star. And, you know, this is Venus when she is the queen, when she's mature, when she comes back after descending down into the underworld. She comes back as the dawn star. She comes back as, you know, Aurora, goddess of the dawn, the one who lights the way forward as a beacon of hope and says, follow my example. This is how we return to a state of love, to a planet of Eden. You know, enter my garden. And this is why, you know, in the mysteries we saw, well, Lilith. Okay, let me give you the story. Okay. So get comfy, get a cup of tea or something. It's always nice to, you know, anticipate a story. Stories is the most beautiful way to learn. They're like medicine for our souls. So the story of the descent of Ishtar or Inanna goes that she heard that her twin sister, Ereshkigal, whose realm was the underworld, the great below, her husband had just died. And that in itself is significant, okay? There may be men that are put through an ego death right now because the feminine counterpart in their life has called out their shadow and it's emasculated them, yeah? It's killed their ego. And so there may be a lot of men running to the hills or swearing off ever being in a relationship with a woman again. But this is, you know, when we understand it from the mythic perspective, and myth, people think myth is, oh, stuff that is made up and never happened. No. Myth is the stories, the universal stories of the psyche, of the inner realms that we all enact, often unconsciously, out in our external waking world. So when we understand the myths, then we reclaim our power to choose, to make conscious choices, better choices, so that we can, you know, write our own adventures ending in a way that is more palatable than if we were to journey the myths unconsciously and make, you know, soap operas out of our lives, drama out of being the victim. So Ishtar was said to reside in the branches of the tree of life, the Shekinah, the Shekinah, depending on where you're from, tomato, but that's, you know, the tree of life. And that is what connects the heavenly divine masculine and the earthly divine feminine. So we have the roots of the divine feminine in the center of the earth. We have the branches up in the heavens. And this was known as the divine feminine principle. We all have this within us. It is the chakra system. Here we see it in my yantra that I'm wearing. So when we open these different gates of awareness, when we understand the different facets of our divine being, and when we see and take responsibility for the shadow of each one of those faces of the God and Goddess within, we become the tree of life. Yeah, we become one with the world soul, and we act by and for the collective consciousness. And that is what it is to be a true leader. So, so we have in the branches Ishtar, and we have in the roots her doppelganger, the dark feminine, Lilith, as you may know her, the serpent. Now, you may recognize the serpent, you know, in the creationist myth that they took from the earlier mythology in Biblos and made it into the patriarchal Bible, and they distorted the story. But the serpent that presents the apple is the fruit of wisdom. So she comes up out of the divine feminine, out of the tree of life, out of the roots of the earth, and she says, will you come into my garden? Will you taste of my dark fruits? Will you become wise, self-aware? Because if we're not prepared to take that bite of the apple, to see our own dark side, we just remain naive like a kid, and we continue making unconscious choices that hurt ourselves, that sabotage our relationships, that hurt people around us, and we always see ourselves as completely blameless. Yeah. So, like the saying, better the devil you know. We all have to grow up. We have to take the bite of the apple, which was said to be the fruit of the goddess, because if you slice an apple open horizontally, you see the five-pointed star, which is the shape that Venus, the planet, makes as she moves through the cosmos. All right. So, you know, this is a gift when someone points out your shadow, when they say, hey, I'm seeing your dark side. This is what you do. Are you aware of it? It's understandable we can want to run from that. It's like, no, I'm so good. I'm not like that. No, pick on someone else. But if we stop to think about it, which is what we need to do over the next 40 days in our mythic desert or our mythic underworld, is we need to contemplate what our shadow dance is in relationship. Okay, I'll give you an example from mine. I've tended to choose partners that I can dominate, right? Not because I wanted to, yeah, but because, well, first of all, I couldn't find someone that could match me, that could meet me. And so I would settle, I would compromise rather than hold out and wait for someone that really could meet me. But also, if I'm really, really honest with myself, because I was totally afraid of being with someone that could stand in their power. You know, if we don't feel deeply and truly loved and safe to just be who we are growing up in our family of origin, we learn very quickly that we need to seek out power. We need to seek out status, protection, security, which is all just other terms of power. And we substitute a search for power when we've given up on love. You know, this is why women cry at weddings. It's like, oh, true love exists, you know. And yes, it does. I have dear friends getting married today. Oh, I've just seen my computer's nearly out of charge. Peter and Mark, who've been together 30 years, and now that gay marriage has been legalised, they are tying the knot today. Bless them. Sorry I can't be there, but look forward to celebrating with you in December. So, yeah, so we all, as a soul, we want to know that true love does exist, but it can only exist when the conditions are right. And the conditions that we need to create true love is the ability and the willingness to be stripped bare, That is what the descent to the underworld is going to ask of us over the next 40 days. That we take a really good hard look at ourselves as Venus descends down into the underworld, and that we get really honest about, okay, how do I manipulate others emotionally, psychologically to get my needs met? What are the choices that lead me to getting hurt again and again? For instance, do you give your trust too freely because you want to trust somebody rather than being reserved, being discerning, and allow someone enough rope to hang themselves, you know, not just giving them all your trust and then swinging into the opposite and going, I'm never going to trust a man or a woman again, you know. It's like, well, hang on a second, did I give my trust too freely? Rather than asking them to earn my trust, not just, you know, emotionally, but financially. What's their integrity like? Do they lie? So, you know, trust is something which is not just given. It must be earned, yeah? And this is why we need to take our time to really get to know somebody, and that be a foundation, you know, that there be a friendship, there be a soul camaraderie, so to speak, before we just dive straight into connecting in the underworld, in the base chakra, with that primal erotic sexual energy. And believe me, that's going to be really charged up at the moment. You know, the number of women I've seen here in Ubud walking around in leopard print ever since Venus moved into Scorpio. Lilith is out, you know, and it's like you know, a cat on heat. You know, you just want to drag your genitals across the carpet. You know, this is just like, yeah, got to get some. But that is not going to lead to a long-term sustainable relationship. You know, if you're just in it for the quick raising of the fire, you're going to be like, you know, as the Tracy Chapman song goes, with smoke and ashes in the morning. So this is about really being responsible for our lust, okay? Because what a lot of people do in our world is they will get drunk or stoned so that they have an excuse for being sexually inappropriate, you know, whether that's cheating on their partner or, you know, just sleeping with someone that ordinarily they wouldn't, you know, jumping into bed too soon. And then they'll blame it on the drugs or the alcohol in the morning. Now, when we, you know, take substances like that, what they do is they lower our consciousness so that we don't have all of our wits about us. I'm referring to the crown down. You know, there's not all of the aspects, all of the archetypes aren't fully present going, okay, well, who are you? You know, let me discern whether or not you're someone that I want to become completely enmeshed with on every level of my being, energetically, psychologically, mentally, emotionally, physically. You know, that's all the nadis, all the light highways within your temple. Is this somebody that you want that imprint with for the next 7 years? You know, in our culture, we don't acknowledge the energetic ramifications of what we do. So, you know, we think, oh, sex is just a physical act, you know, and hopefully I won't get emotionally entangled. No, you know, even if you're having pseudo sex with somebody, as you see a lot here with the contact dance polyamory crew, you know, that is still having an energetic sexual experience with someone. You know, when I was working as a stripper, I would have that with many, many men. You know, so just because someone isn't physically, you know, having sex with someone does not mean that all of those nadis aren't becoming entangled. Yeah, that's what happens when we flirt with someone. We're actually putting out that energy going, hey, baby, do you find me attractive? You know, and we see that a lot at the moment with the dance between Mars and Libra. So we've got the sun in Libra, and we've got, well, the full moon was in Mars, but it's this lesson between Libra and Mars at the moment. And so we see a lot of the young Aphrodites going, do you find me attractive? And the warrior, the Aries, doing their war dance on the dance floor, showing off their naked muscles, going, yeah, do you find me attractive? And then before you know it, like two poles of a magnet, they're, and, really it's just narcissism. It's an ego dance, which comes from, a lack of self-love, a lack of seeing one's own beauty and lovability, needing it to be proved externally back to them. And so when people are operating on that level, they're not even available to true love. They're not looking at, who is this person? Do they touch my soul? What do we have to share? Or how can I serve this person? It's really just about getting their ego gratification. Yeah. So we're likely to see a lot of that playing out, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere where it's now spring. So we have the archetypes of the maiden and the knight up. Regardless of our chronological age, they resurface. It's like, oh yeah, looking for love. So getting back to the descent though. So Venus, as the queen, as the mature Ishtar Inanna, she goes, right, I am consciously going to go down and have a look at my shadow. And that is the mark of a queen or a king, somebody who willingly descends to go, yeah, I need to have a look at what I do unconsciously that sabotages love, that sabotages harmonious relating, because unless we understand it, unless we bring the light of awareness, we're going to keep doing it, and we're going to keep replaying out the same dance and the same wounds. And so the only thing that's going to stop that, whether we change partners, is not, it's irrelevant. We are bringing that baggage. We are bringing the same patterns, the same expectations, the same illusions into every relationship. So unless we do a timeout and we go, right, stop, I am going to have a look at the repetition, look at the pattern and go, what were the steps that I took in the dance that led to that wounding? Not what did the other person do, what did I do? Because when we bring it back to me, then we're able to go, so I can be accountable, I can choose different steps in the dance, so I'm going to have a different outcome. I won't have my feet trodden on in the dance, or your heart in this case. So, interesting, Raven has said, I'm glad I'm single. Well, look, gotta say, it doesn't even matter whether you're in a relationship or not. Everyone is going to feel the effects of this Venus descent period, okay? Whether it plays out with friends, with, workmates, we are all going to be put through it. And the key, as I said before, is self-love. So what does self-love look like? Let me just have a drink. It's a term that gets bandied around a lot. A lot of memes dedicated to self-love. But if we think about love, it's a verb. Yeah, it's about the actions that we take. Are our actions ones that are going to be honoring of ourselves and therefore honoring of others? Because there is a difference between being selfish and self-honoring. Selfish is when we simply act out of the unconscious child's desires, like I want this, I want that, and not thinking about the impact on others. That's selfish. Self-honoring is when we do stop and consider the effects of our words and our actions on others, but we stop and we go, okay, I can be empathic. Yeah, I can see that this person is coming from wound, so I'm not going to take it on as being about me, but I'm also not going to stick around to just be a whipping dog or a sounding board to be drained or wounded. I'm going to set a boundary. That's self-love. And so what happens in the Ishtar myth is she descends down to the underworld and she sees her own crap. She sees how she's playing out the shadow through every different archetype. So I speak about this in my book, The Inner Goddess Makeover for the Women. It would be a great time to, if you haven't read that book, it's a workbook. And yeah, it literally unveils the shadow and the strengths of every single feminine archetype, but particularly your Aphrodite one. This is, you know, when we really want to have a good hard look at our shadow Aphrodite. So do get your hands on that. It's on my website or on Amazon. It's just called The Inner Goddess Makeover. For the guys, I do outline the male archetypes in my book, Creating Sacred Union Within. Again, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at my website, themoonwoman.com. And again, I speak about the shadow traits. As soon as we recognize ourselves in those mythic archetypes, we immediately are going to make different choices, more empowered choices. So when we really get a sense of, okay, that wasn't a good choice. When we see our own shadow, we can see the shadow in others more clearly. Okay, we can't see the shadow in others if we're not prepared to look at our own shadow. What is the shadow? The unconscious thoughts, the self-sabotaging behaviors and choices. So that's the payoff. If we don't look at our own crap and realize, yeah, I've got a part in this, yeah, we are vulnerable to being taken advantage of, hurt, wounded by predators, or whether it's people that seek consciously to harm us, or just people that are so wounded they're going to hurt everybody that they come into contact with. If we don't look at our own shadow, we're going to attract those people and be very susceptible to wearing the shadow of others. And so that's why we really need to look at our own crap. So, you know, this year has been a very intense year because it's an 11 year. The lesson this year is sacred union. So to have Venus now do this swan song where she, you know, it's like a bungee jump down into the underworld with Venus in Scorpio, where she goes, right, coming ready or not, you are going to look at the ways that you create war instead of love, the ways that you seek out power because you're afraid of being vulnerable, you're afraid of being transparent, you're afraid of being hurt. For instance, you know, and this is a big taboo. A lot of taboo stuff's going to come up. Anything people have been trying to hide, whether that's an illicit affair, it's all going to come out over the next 40 days. And it's how we respond, how we deal with it, that is really going to make or break our relationships. So it's not about scapegoating and vilifying the other as, you know, you're all bad, which makes me, you know, oh so pure and white. No, that's a Puritan. That's someone who is coming from their mind, not from their heart. You know, when we see our own crap, we have humility and we have empathy for others. Now, the danger in that is that we can be so empathic, we allow others to treat us like crap because we see how wounded they are, and so we hold a space for them. But it's important that we set boundaries, because the key, when we remember our divine gifts and our strengths at each of those archetypes, each of the 7 chakras, the 7 gates, the mark of a queen or a king is that they go, right, I see that you're wounded and I do love you, but my self-love is greater than my desire for you. That's it in a nutshell. If you don't take anything else away from this video, that's the nugget. So self-love is the victory. Self-love is you know, the triumphant return of the hero. When we really look at, okay, what am I doing in my life that is not loving? Am I being addictive? Am I repeating the same pattern again and again? Am I, you know, doing a job that I hate and taking it out on my family? because wherever we are not making self-loving choices, you can guarantee it's going to impact every other aspect of our lives and those closest to us. So we owe it to those who are in our vicinity, those in our sphere of influence, that we do make self-honoring choices. We do question, is this loving? What would love do in this situation? Because if we're not stopping to question that, chances are it's not loving. You know, it's the ego trying to get its desires met, its wants met, like a child. And when we do that, we operate in manipulation. Unconsciously, we all do it to each other. So Scorpio, I have spoken about before as being in three parts. So there's the scorpion who crawls along the ground and who, you know, gets into sort of vengeful eye for an eye justice. Then there's the serpent, which is the second stage of Scorpio, who has awakened self-awareness, awakened the kundalini, the force, yeah? And then the third level, which is the eagle that sees the lesson, okay, and so can rise above the drama. Now, last night, I was lucky enough to have a reading with Stella Woods, and yeah, great astrologer, thoroughly recommend her. And she gave me a different take on the three levels of Scorpio, which I think is lovely, so I'd love to share it with you. And that is that she speaks about the serpent being the first level, then the eagle being the one who can transcend the drama, and then the final version being the dove. And the dove, in all the ancient goddess statues, was often shown sitting on the crown of the goddess. And yeah, here in Bali, there's loads of doves. We had them constantly at the retreat, the goddess retreat that I ran last week. And the dove, it's not just about peace, it's about one who embodies the beauty of their soul, one who celebrates the beauty of their soul by making sure that they never minimize their light. They never allow themselves to stay in a situation where their light, their soul essence is being diminished. And how is that diminished? When we stay in a situation where people are cruel, where they're unconscious in the words that they say to us, or they take us for granted, or they stand us up, or they don't respond to our messages, or they're always late, or they'll put us down using humor and mock us, or they'll laugh at us. You know, these are things that people that are unconscious, if we speak up on our own behalf and go, that didn't feel good, they're likely to say, what's the matter? Can't you take a joke and put it back on us? Rather than look at themselves, they will deflect. And so, you know, we have to come back to what our knowing is and what our feelings are telling us. So if a situation doesn't feel good, if your soul feels minimized by being around somebody who is not able to be loving, they haven't developed the capacity to love because they haven't developed the capacity to love themselves. And how do we love ourselves? Through healing, through self-awareness, okay? So the people that do not make that a priority, that say, oh, it's too much money, I'm not going to do that, or I don't have the time, and they're the two big saboteurs, aren't they? Time and money. When people go, oh, I can't go to that retreat, or I can't go to that workshop, or I can't buy that book, or whatever, it's usually time and money, which are the excuses of the rational mind. That 10% part of us that will always have a logical reason as to why you can't do something, but it limits us. It keeps us in the soul cage of rational fear. So at some point, the soul, the heart, has to be bigger than the rational mind and say, you know what? I'm called to do that, even though it's a lot of money, even though I'm going to have to organize babysitters, even though I can't see how I'm going to pay for it. Maybe I can ask if I can tee up a payment plan. You know, love will find a way. Yeah? Love will ensure life gets bigger. Love is what enables us to grow and commits to growth. This is why it's what was most dear to the sacred feminine traditions, and why the empire says, you don't need to grow, just keep watching TV and eating McDonald's. That is not self-loving. You know, that keeps people in the child, in the ego, just looking for sensate comfort, self-gratification, whether it's sex, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's food, whether it's movies, like the hungry caterpillar, constantly self-soothing like a baby sucking on a bottle, rather than going, what is the root cause? Getting down to the roots in the tree of life and going, what is this about? Why am I suppressing my emotions with addictions, with sensate transitory pleasures, with distractions? It's because I don't want to feel. And Scorpio, Venus in Scorpio, is going to ask us to feel, and feel intensely, because the lesson of Scorpio is about transformation through intense emotion. Yeah? So if you will, it's like being put in the crucible of fire. You may feel as if you are going mad with grief or mad with rage, but get it out in a safe place, whether that's going to breath work, you know, rebirthing, private or group sessions are ideal, whether that's going to a 5 rhythms or an open floor dance meditation with your eyes closed and dancing out all the emotion that has been withheld in your cells and not given free rein to express itself, to let the chaos out. Because if we're doing these active meditations, these active processes to move that toxic energy, it will transmute. Yeah? We simply have to be prepared to go back, revisit the pain and feel it and give it expression in order for it to then change form, because that's what energy does. Emotion, energy in motion, once it's released, once the cat's out of the bag, then it changes form. So, you know, Lilith was said to be a wildcat. I had Jaguar the last couple of mornings visiting me in meditation, you know. So this is about our ability to go there, to really see and feel our darkest emotions and move them out of our bodies. You know, you can do it with self-pleasuring, you know, really allow yourself with your eyes closed to go deep and to bring that energy up and to have huge emotional releases. You know, we aren't taught when we come of age that, you know, we have this power that we can use our sexual essence, our sexual energy as a form of self-healing. So if you're feeling, you know, as horny as all get up, don't go troweling for a partner on Tinder. Don't go, you know, wearing your sexiest get up and like putting on the, hey, radar, anybody, you know, try and get laid, because you just complicate with drama and get further away from the roots of the problem that need to be addressed. So do mark in your diary, I'll just get another drink, October 26. October 26 is the turning point of this Venus descent that starts today. That is when Venus stops going down, 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 when you hit the bottom of the well, okay? So don't plan to do too much on October 26, no matter where you are in the world. Instead, make sure that you get some alone time, maybe schedule a healing or a reading or a walk or time alone in nature, because October 26 is when we hit ground zero, okay, on that descent of Venus. And when, you know, there's no further to fall, and that's when we get the aha moments, all right? From then on in, that's when we start the ascent, all right? But only if we've done the work. So do the journaling, do the breath work, the dance meditations. You know, ritual is another great tool. And I'm not talking about reading something out of a book. The most powerful rituals are simple acts of power that we create for ourselves, that are just between us and the universe, us and existence, that help us to anchor a change that we know we need to make in our lives. So it might be as simple as writing something down and speaking it under the stars to the universe and saying, help me with this. Yeah, and burning it and watching those tendrils of smoke take our prayers up to the ancestors, to the star beings. Ask for help. You know, when it comes to doing a descent, we have to remember, whether it's Snow White or Rumpelstiltskin, you know, in all the ancient stories, when the young maidens remembered to ask for help, whether that was from the Fae, the little people, or whether that was from, you know, our ancestors or our guides or our totem animals or our stellar neighbors, if we don't ask for help, then we don't experience miracles. But if we remember to ask for help, then it is given. We experience grace. So that is key in the next 40 days as we all journey down to look at our deepest, hardest lessons in relationship. Because if we can't do relationship with each other, how in the heck are we going to have peace on earth? Because the macrocosm is a mirror, a hologram of the microcosm. This is why I'm so passionate about teaching people the practice of the Hieros Gamos, of sacred union. I'm going to be beginning this work. I think it's going to start January next year in Australia with workshops looking at the shadow in relationships, the power plays that play out, and how we can heal that, whether we're currently in a relationship or not. Because so long as we have a divorce rate of 50%, and those that are still in relationship are often in unconscious power struggles, one partner dominating the other, then we're not going to have peace on earth. We're not going to have safe group dynamics for our children to grow up in. And, you know, this is the elephant in the room. We don't know how to be honoring towards each other, how to be loving, how to create harmonious human interactions, you know. So, yeah, I'm going to be traveling around the world offering these. I'm looking for people to host me. So if you're interested in having me come to your city, just contact me, yeah, via a private message on my Facebook page. Anybody that, you know, has a studio, yoga studio, has a venue, has a following, I will come if there is the demand. So this is my calling, and this is how I know I'm meant to be serving in this next chapter. So, yeah, just put that invitation out there. So the final 20 days after October 26th, right through until the 16th of November is when we'll be coming up out of the underworld. So that's when we're going to be making positive choices to either rebuild a relationship where there has been betrayal, where there has been pain and hurt, only if we've really acknowledged it, yeah? Or for those that are not in a partnership, this is when the trajectory of who you choose to dance with is going to change, because you will have changed. No longer will you look at unavailable people or at toxic people or at narcissistic people as, got to get me some of that. No, no, no. This will be the time when we go, actually, I see your shadow. I have empathy and compassion for you, but I'm not going to tango with you. Yeah. So if you're wanting more insight into the story of Ishtar, basically she goes down to the underworld and she meets the part of herself that she has denied, okay? The part of herself that she feels is unlovable, unacceptable, and therefore, you know, unless we choose us, unless we go, you know what, I choose to spend time with myself. I'm not going to spend all this time looking for love outside of myself. I'm going to choose to paint, to write poetry, to draw. I'm going to write music. You know, how can I express how much love I have within me? I'm going to express it through art, because art is the language of the soul. And when we express our soul through art, we can't not fall in love with ourselves. Doesn't matter whether or not you're an artist, yeah? You will find jewels in yourself simply by showing up and spending quality time with yourself. And when we do that, then we have something to share with our beloved and to say, you know what? This is who I am. It's not just the external. It's not just, oh, yes, well, I'm wrinkle-free and I've got a, C-cup breath. No, that's the ego. The ego is looking out there going, yeah, that's the kind of partner I want to be with. That's someone that turns me on. That's coming from the lower 3 chakras. Someone who is ready for a soulmate partnership is looking straight into the eyes, into the heart and going, who are you? Have you spent time with yourself finding out who you are? Can you share with me your poetry? Can you share with me your art? These are the love arts. This is what we used to do in a courtship. Yeah, it was about sharing and allowing the other to be the muse, to inspire great works of art, not taking each other out for a burger, then road testing each other's body 2 hours later. That's ego. That's using each other. It is not loving and it's not self-honoring. So I'll end the chastity talk, but you get the drift. It's about zipping it up from the base to the crown, zipping up that chastity belt, transmuting that sexual intensity, that desire into artistic expression. And when we do that, we birth ourselves anew as the soul. And so those that do take that journey consciously will, like a butterfly out of a chrysalis. Interesting, the dog Digo is going off. It's about being loyal to oneself, being one's own best friend. That's the medicine of dog. So I just love it. Got to share this with you. When Venus becomes visible as the dawn star, it'll be my birthday, November 5th. So I'm taking that as a personal rebirth after 21 years of working with Ishtar to finally be embodying that energy in form. So God knows what the next 40 days will be like for me, but I think I've got some art to create. So it would be lovely if you feel to share your art. Maybe I should make a group for this. The 40-day descent into hell Venus support group. And if you can share your art, I think that's a good idea. I'll do that. So yes, art is healing. Art is the greatest way to heal from our trauma, because it gives a voice to that which is even sometimes too scary to put into words. So people that have gone through extreme trauma in their childhood, and let's face it, who hasn't, this is a great way to transmute that through art. So go get some crayons, some paints. Remember, it's not about what it looks like, it's about the process. Yeah, it might be about getting messy. It might be about, using colors that just you want to eat because they feed your light body with the color therapy that you most need. It might be about making broad brush strokes, getting a huge fuck off canvas and just really letting yourself go, but really just get creative. That's our challenge, because Ishtar governs the crown chakra. So if we want to ascend, if we want to be the embodiment of our divine selves, having a human experience, then we need to become creative. And the more creative we become, the less addictive we become. So if we're someone who's very addictive, okay, we're constantly craving chocolate, craving, other people's company, yeah, can't be alone. If we're craving cigarettes, whatever it is, yeah, it's a sign that our creative energy is blocked. So the more that we use our energy creatively, this is a meditation. It's when we are literally at one with the divine within us. And it's an active meditation, so it keeps the mind focused and busy as well. So, you'll see with kids, they'll behave badly if they're bored. Same with us. We make destructive choices if we're bored. I know when I smoked for 17 years, It was because I was bored with the people I was hanging out with. So then I realized, got to spend more time on my own rather than smoking and being with people that drain me. So, you know, dare to pull back, to be a recluse. You know, the young Aphrodite in all of us, regardless of our gender, is like, oh, I might miss out if I'm not out there socializing. No, pull back, get to know yourself, and trust that the more we are creative, the more it opens up our devotional heart. Yeah, and the opposite of addiction is devotion. Ultimately, it's about us becoming the masterpiece, us becoming a piece of art, you know, our life becoming an act of beauty, a piece of art, something that is a joy to create. So let that be the muse for your 40-day descent, and I'll go get busy. Hi, Chris, and create a group that can be our Venus support group. And do join me in Ubud for these events at Sayuri and hopefully Paradiso, really unveiling the taboo that is Venus in Scorpio, where we lose our power, where we've distorted our power, and where we need to find our way back to love. Blessings. And yeah, look forward to seeing your pieces of art, even the really messy, skanky, dark ones. Because often if we are feeling traumatized, you can't paint flowers. You just got to make a mess. You got to get black. You got to get grey. You got to be authentic and express what is alive and present in you. And then the colours will start to change. You'll start to lighten up. All right. Blessings, everyone. And yeah, good luck with your descent. Nanu, nanu.